You know that moment when someone looks you in the eye and tells you, without hesitation, that your feelings don't matter? Yeah, that happened to me. In my own kitchen. Stop acting like we're married. You don't get a say in where I go or who I'm with. She said it like it was a joke. Everyone laughed. Her friends, those 3 unbearable satellites she orbits, actually cackled. And I just stood there like an idiot smiling, pretending it didn't punch a hole right through me. I should have said something. I should have walked out or thrown the wooden spoon across the room or shouted. But I didn't. I just shut down. Everything inside me folded in on itself and went silent. I smiled. That big, dumb, empty smile you wear when it's either that or break something. And that was it. That was the moment something inside me died. Or maybe something finally woke up. We'd been together for 2 years. 6 of those months, she'd been living in my house. Not a shared apartment, not something we picked out together. No, my house. My name on the mortgage, my name on the utility bills, even the Wilsons plaque she ordered online and slapped by the front door without asking me. A premature prophecy. Bold of her, honestly. And yet, in her eyes, I was just a host. A placeholder. A supporting role in the Jessica show. I used to think she was fire. Bright, wild, impossible to hold. Now I see it. She's not fire, she's a black hole. And me? I was just something unlucky enough to get caught in her orbit. She swept into the kitchen that night with her phone glued to her ear, already dressed to go out, reeking of coconut body spray and entitlement. A weekend away is exactly what I need, she said, beaming. No, he's not coming. Don't be ridiculous. Then she turned to me, as if the decision had already been made. Good news. The girls and I are going to the lake. Leaving tomorrow. No discussion. No heads up. Just an announcement. I said nothing at first. I stirred the sauce like a robot and asked, quietly, which lake? That's when the performance really began. Jessica looked at me like I'd just asked if I could read her private diary. Tiffany arrived, like she always did, no knock, just an invasion, and Jessica jumped on the opportunity for an audience. Can you believe him? She said, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. He wants to know where I'm going. Tiffany's eyes scanned me like I was mold growing in her friend's kitchen. That's when Jessica dropped the line. The one I'll never forget. And that's when I changed. Because something about standing there with sauce dripping onto the floor while 3 overgrown teenagers laughed at me in my own home snapped something inside. Not with rage. Not even with heartbreak. It was quieter than that. Colder. More final. It was the moment I realized I didn't love her anymore. And worse, I didn't even like her. You know what? I said, forcing my smile wider, hiding the tremble in my voice. You're 100% right. My mistake. She actually patted me on the cheek. Like I was a puppy that had finally learned its place. Then they left. Giggles echoing behind them, already halfway to their rose-soaked weekend. I stood in the kitchen a while after they were gone. The sauce kept bubbling like it hadn't noticed anything had changed. But I had. This weekend wasn't going to be what she thought. I cleaned up the sauce. I washed the spoon. And I started planning. Not married. No say. Got it. My first stop? Mrs. Gable. 80 years old, half-deaf, and absolutely terrifying. She knew everything about everyone on our street, and if you played your cards right, she'd become your personal security system. Or in this case, my co-conspirator. I brought her lemon cake. She loves lemon cake. I need your help, I said after we exchanged the usual small talk about squirrels and the garbage pickup schedule. It's a little theatrical. Her eyes lit up. Of course they did. The woman lives for drama. By the time I explained what Jessica had said, verbatim, Mrs. Gable was practically trembling with righteous fury. That shameless little hussy, she hissed. Tell me what to do, sweetheart. I'm ready. I gave her her lines. She rehearsed them twice. We shook on it. Then I went home and got to work. First step, packing. Not trashing, not smashing, packing. Carefully, methodically, with the cold detachment of a museum curator boxing up an exhibit that had run its course. I labeled every box. Everyday clothes. Fancy clothes for fancy nights I wasn't invited to. Magic glitter dresses do not open indoors. Her 37 pairs of stilettos? Footwear from hell. The mountain of creams and serums and suspiciously overpriced elixirs? Witchcraft and potions. Saturday morning, I called 2 guys from a moving app. By noon, it was all gone. Everything. Loaded into a 10 by 5 storage unit with 1 paid month and 0 obligations. With the house cleared, I did what I should have done 6 months ago. I took it back. Out went the beige rug. In came fake AstroTurf. Out went the soulless white couch. In came a leather recliner sofa that looked like it came with a warning label. I sold her sad little minimalist coffee table and replaced it with a broken pinball machine that lit up but didn't work. Which, now that I think about it, is the perfect metaphor. I removed the weird macrame from above the bed and hung a poster of a grizzly bear catching a salmon. Why? Because I could. But the crown jewel came later that afternoon, when I just went to look at the animal shelter. Gus. A 120-pound St. Bernard with paws the size of dinner plates and a snore that could rattle drywall. He walked into my house, claimed the sofa as his own, and promptly passed out like he'd been here all his life. I swear, the moment he arrived, the energy shifted. It wasn't just a house anymore. It was mine again. By Sunday night, Gus was snoring in my lap, the game was on, and I was drinking a beer from the bottle in a room that no longer made me feel like a guest. I changed the Wi-Fi password. I changed the locks. And I waited. Because I knew. She was coming back. And this time, she'd be the one standing outside. She came back humming. Like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't gutted me in my own kitchen just days before. It was Sunday night, a little after 9. Gus and I were on the couch. Well, I was on the couch, and Gus was draped across 80% of it like a furry weighted blanket. I had a beer in one hand and the TV remote in the other when my phone buzzed. Doorbell notification. Front porch. I tapped the screen. There she was. Jessica. Lake-tanned, lip-glossed, phone in hand. Happy. Relaxed. Too relaxed. She strolled up the walkway, completely unaware that her universe was about to tilt. She pulled out her key, shoved it into the lock, and click. Nothing. She frowned, tried again. Then again. Her smile faded. She knocked. Light at first. Then harder. Tom? Hello? My key's not working. My tea's not working. I didn't move. I stayed right where I was, Gus's head warm on my lap. He lifted his snout, let out a low, grumpy woof, and went back to sleep. The knocking escalated. She called my phone. I watched it light up on top of the pinball machine. Declined. She called again. Declined. Again. 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 I let the silence stretch. I let her feel it. Finally, she stopped knocking. I could see her pacing now, agitated. She ran her hands through her hair. Then, right on cue, the porch light next door flicked on. Showtime. Mrs. Gable stepped out in her pink housecoat, holding a watering can she absolutely did not need at 9:30 p.m. Oh, Jessica dear, she called sweetly. Is that you? Mrs. Gable. Thank God. Jessica rushed to the porch rail. Do you know if Tom's home? My key isn't working. Oh, he's home, Mrs. Gable said with a smile. Had the most wonderful weekend. A real transformation. Jessica blinked. Transformation. Mrs. Gable leaned in, lowering her voice like she was about to share a scandalous piece of gossip. Well, he told me the good news. That you two aren't married. That he doesn't get a say in your life, and you don't get a say in his. So, he decided to celebrate. Reclaimed the house. Made it his own again. Jessica stared at her like she was speaking another language. And Mrs. Gable added brightly, he got a dog. A big one. Name's Gus. Said he wanted someone loyal who doesn't talk back. Isn't that precious? From inside the living room, I watched her reaction unfold like theater. She turned slowly toward the window, hands pressed to the glass. I saw her eyes scan the room. The leather recliner. The AstroTurf rug. The glowing pinball machine. The giant, snoring St. Bernard. Her expression cracked. A scream-sob hybrid escaped her lips. She staggered back from the window, fumbled with her phone, and started texting furiously. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Tom, what the hell? Open the door. This is insane. You're insane. Why is there a dog? I stared at the flood of all-caps fury. Then I did the only thing I'd planned to do all along. I responded. You said to stop acting like we're married. You said I don't get a say. I agree. This is my house, and you don't get a say in how I live in it. Your things are safe. 123 Storage Way, Unit 42. Code is 1234. You have 1 month. Have a great life. Then I blocked her. From the couch, I watched her read the message on her screen. I saw her lips move as she read it again. Then she looked up at the house. At me. At Gus. She screamed. A full-body, wild, high-pitched banshee wail that sent a nearby squirrel fleeing into the bushes. Then she hurled her phone onto the lawn. It bounced once, landed in a pile of leaves, and lay there blinking like a dying robot. She stormed up and down the porch, stomping, shouting, gesturing like a broken marionette. I didn't move. Gus didn't move. Mrs. Gable watched the entire performance with the quiet satisfaction of someone who had just witnessed karma in real time. 10 minutes later, a car pulled up. Tiffany. Jessica clumped down the steps, retrieved her phone with a snarl, and got in. The tires screeched as they sped off into the night. I didn't celebrate. I didn't cry. I just sat there, hand resting on Gus's giant head, listening to the quiet. The kind of quiet that feels earned. And I realized something. Sometimes, the loudest thing you can say to someone is nothing at all. The morning after the meltdown, the silence was delicious. No texts. No calls. No key jiggling at the door. Just me, Gus, a strong cup of coffee, and the sound of my new life settling into place. But of course, the silence couldn't last forever. By midday, the internet told me Jessica had started spinning the narrative. The Instagram stories began. First a black screen with sad indie music. Then a moody selfie with smeared mascara. Then a quote in pink cursive, "Sometimes the strongest thing a woman can do is walk away." I nearly choked on my toast. She made it look like she had walked away. Like I hadn't packed up her glitter-shedding wardrobe and personally evicted every last beige throw pillow from my home. Like I hadn't changed the locks because she told me I wasn't allowed to care. Then came the cryptic tweets. Beware of men who pretend to love you while quietly resenting your light. If he's threatened by your freedom, he was never your partner. Just your warden. And my personal favorite. Lost 200 pounds of dead weight this weekend. #freedom. Oh, honey. For a brief moment, I wondered if I should respond. Not publicly. Just something subtle. A little correction. But I didn't. Not yet. I let her have her narrative. Let her dance around in her carefully curated victimhood, painting me as some emotionally stunted tyrant who couldn't handle a strong, independent woman. It was predictable. Like watching a toddler throw a tantrum and thinking they've written a novel. Then, 2 days later, I played my card. I didn't rant. I didn't call her out. I didn't even mention her name. I just posted a photo album. Private. Mutual friends only. Photo 1. The living room before. That sad, clinical couch. The pastel pillows. The art that looked like printer errors. Caption, before. Photo 2. The living room after. The leather recliner. The glowing pinball machine. The AstroTurf rug. Gus, stretched out like royalty. Caption, after. Photo 3. A selfie. Me and Gus, both grinning, both relaxed. His tongue hanging out like he'd just inherited a kingdom. Caption. Decided to redecorate based on my new relationship status. Was recently reminded that I'm not married and don't get a say, so I'm embracing my freedom. #bachelorpad, #dog is my co-pilot, #no say no stay. That was it. And it was nuclear. Within an hour, I started getting DMs. Not the thirsty kind. The respectful kind. Old college friends. Neighbors. Even one of Jessica's coworkers, who messaged me just to say, I knew she was exhausting. That dog is adorable, BTW. The tide turned fast. Suddenly, the whispered sympathy Jessica had been milking turned into quiet horror. Because when people saw the before and after, they got it. They saw the transformation not just of the space, but of me. It wasn't psycho boyfriend kicks out girlfriend. It was girlfriend tells man his opinion doesn't matter and is stunned when he agrees with her. Jessica didn't post anything the next day. Or the day after that. Radio silence. Which was probably for the best, because by then, I'd heard through the grapevine that she was couch surfing at Tiffany's and that it wasn't going well. Apparently, contributing nothing to rent and offering only vibes and unsolicited life advice doesn't fly when you're not dating the person who pays the bills. Eventually, Jessica moved back in with her parents. 3 hours away. I didn't gloat. I didn't cheer. I didn't care. Until I got a letter. A legal letter. Apparently, Jessica had decided that she was the victim of a crime. That I had wrongfully withheld her property and forced her into homelessness. Her lawyer, some poor soul fresh out of law school, by the look of it, demanded access to my house, financial compensation, and a formal apology. My lawyer responded with copies of the mortgage, the lease, the Wi-Fi bills, all in my name. He also kindly inquired whether Jessica would be reimbursing me for the 6 months of rent, utilities, and groceries she had consumed as a non-married person with no responsibilities. We never heard back. The silence was, again, delicious. And then, just when I thought the whole saga was over, I ran into someone I hadn't expected to see. Chardonnay. Yes, that's Chardonnay. Harpy number 3. It was a sunny afternoon at the dog park. Gus was galloping across the grass, proudly carrying a stick the size of a baseball bat. I was talking to a woman about chew toys when I saw her. Chardonnay. Approaching cautiously, like I might bite. Hey, she said, not meeting my eyes. Tom. I raised an eyebrow. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For that night. In your kitchen. We were awful. You didn't deserve that. I said nothing for a second. Just nodded. She sighed. Jessica called me last week, by the way. Said her parents are making her get a job. Said it's all your fault for ruining her life. She actually used air quotes. I looked at Gus, now trying to fit 3 tennis balls in his mouth. Chardonnay smiled, but it was a little sad. Honestly? It looks like you're doing just fine. I am, I thought. Finally, I really am. It's been a few months now. The house still smells a little like wet dog, and the pinball machine still doesn't work, but the silence feels different these days. It's not the kind that made me question my own worth, not the kind I used to fill with her chaos and call it love. It's just peace. Gus and I have a rhythm now. He's the best roommate I've ever had. He doesn't hog the bathroom, he doesn't roll his eyes when I ask what his weekend plans are, and he never brings home people who laugh at me in my own kitchen. I can leave my socks on the floor. I can watch terrible action movies without someone sighing dramatically. I can eat frozen pizza with extra cheese and not get lectured about gluten. More than that, I can breathe. For the first time in a long time, this place feels like mine. Not just the walls and furniture, but the life inside it. Sometimes I walk through the living room at night and just take it all in, the dim glow of the pinball machine, the deep indent in the couch where Gus has claimed his kingdom, the dog fur clinging to every surface like confetti from a party I forgot we threw. It's messy. It's loud. It's alive. And every now and then, I think back to that night in the kitchen. To her voice, sharp and mocking. You don't get a say. That line used to haunt me. Now it feels like a punchline. She meant it as a power move. A way to shut me down, keep me quiet, remind me of my place. But it was also the moment she told me the truth. The truth she never thought I'd be brave or petty enough to accept. I believed her. She said I didn't get a say in where she went, what she did, who she was with. And that meant, by her own logic, she didn't get a say either. Not in my space. Not in my peace. Not in my life. I've had a few people ask if I miss her. If I regret how it ended. If I think we could have salvaged it somehow. And honestly, no. Because for all the drama, the glitter, the theatrics, I was never the main character in that story. Just the prop boy, holding up the set behind the scenes. It wasn't real partnership. It wasn't love. It was performance. And the minute the audience stopped clapping, she bolted. There's no sadness in that realization. Just clarity. Some people will always see freedom as a stage and others as a sanctuary. She needed an audience. I needed silence. And now I have it. Well, except for Gus's snoring. And the occasional squeaky toy massacre. I guess that's what healing looks like for me. Long walks with a 120-pound shadow, coffee sipped slowly on a sofa that fits me, and not checking my phone every 5 minutes waiting for another crisis. And peace that doesn't feel borrowed. Just mine.